right, everybody, welcome back to the FOF Guide starring the FOF. In this episode, the FOF talks with Samuel, who's an airline pilot, and has been kind enough to share all sorts of information with us. And he's going to tell us what it's like to become a pilot and what it takes to become an airline pilot. So kick back, relax, it's time for takeoff. Ladies and gentlemen, the FOF Guide and the FOF.
Start that again. Hey, Samuel, thank you very much for having me on the show. I appreciate this, buddy.
Yeah, man. No worries.
I guess we could start off here. What is your educational background? Where'd you get your education at?
I went for college in Brazil. I studied architecture and urban design. As I was going for college and university, I started practicing photography. I started learning photography, and then that led me to work with that while I was studying. And later on, after I finished my university, I didn't really want to work with architecture anymore. I was so involved with film, photography and film, so that I went to do a master degree in Spain for film.
Wow, crazy! So it's more than just a pilot thing, and you've done quite a few things. That's
yeah, exactly. Like I think the course itself, like the course of architecture and urban design, opened up many doors for me, and one of them was definitely the photography and film and so many other things. And but I always wanted to fly, right? Like I since I was a kid, and never actually had the opportunity, or found it feasible to do it, or had the money to. So it was always in the back of my mind.
So the pilot school, how did that work out? Like, I mean, just how do you become a pilot? What do they do? You got to fill out something, do an essay, or how does it work exactly?
I was in Brazil and working in the film industry, and I started flying paragliders, and had many friends that were pilots, even pilots from the United States, and they would come down and fly paragliders with us on the weekends. And I started learning more, and that was something that was actually not that hard. It was demystified in a way that I could understand more and see that, oh, this is so. I looked for the best school where I was going to do it, and I looked to do it in the U.S., in Brazil. In Brazil, it's kind of hard. I even have a student right now. He's been trying to succeed in his career since 10 years. I think he started in like 2011 or so. So he now came to Canada. He's doing his conversion and everything. So in Brazil, it's really hard. He has an instructor rating over there, but he can't get work. It's tough, and that's one of the reasons why I changed careers too. It was pretty hard for the film industry at the moment.
Yeah.
And then I looked for the best schools, and the best place itself, like including like weather conditions, mountains. And then because my mom lives in the US, I thought about going to the US, but it's more expensive there, and we don't have the opportunity to work or migrate and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a girlfriend. She was living in Canada, so she told me how it was easier to migrate here. And so I started looking into it, and then she was from Montreal, but I didn't really want to go to Montreal because no mountains. It was really cold, and it ended up that I came to Vancouver because all the conditions with like snow and mountains and even smoke-filled skies in the summer. And so I wanted to challenge myself and be able to like get the best education I could. So that's why I came here since day one.
What were some of the challenges there? Like, I mean, was there like your English was obviously pretty good, so you had problems there, or?
Well, like that was the most challenging part, is definitely the language, right? Because you have to study everything in another language, which is not your first language. You have to do exams. The exams were pretty tough. Flight tests, you have to do good communication on the radio. Like you have to talk to tower. It's not that easy at first. That was really challenging, probably the most challenging part. Like the English exam itself, it's not hard, but the flying, it's really tough when it comes to having to do it in another language or in another country with different culture, right? So it's
Yeah.
everything is different, and even like understanding people on the radio. Like there's a lot of people in Canada that are flying that are from India or other places that have different accents, like people from Australia, that they're pretty hard to understand on, like, when you're flying on the radio. So that was a big challenge. I'd say probably the most challenging part of it.
What kind of degree is it? Is it like a bachelor's or is it a diploma when you?
I joined for a commercial pilot program, which is like a certificate, and then with that you get several ratings. Like you start off with the single engine, and then you get your. I got my night rating next after I got my private pilot, and then I went to the multi-engine rating, and after the multi-engine, I went to get my commercial, and then after the commercial, I got my IFR. To work, you need those ratings. If you want to work commercial flying airlines. So I had to get those things, and then after that, I really wanted to try flying float planes, and I also got my float plane rating.
Oh wow, that's crazy. So
That was something extra, right? Like the commercial pilot program involves the private pilot, commercial pilot, multi IFR. Of course, I had to, if you're going to airlines, you have to write another exam to act as a first officer or like a co-pilot, and so I did that, and that's what I went for.
you learn the fundamentals before you even touch the plane. You got to do the fundamentals of how to talk to the tower and stuff like that and all that. Is that how it works? And learn about aerodynamics. Is that how it works? Or
Yeah, basically, like with the ground school, we have all the parts that involve aerodynamics and stuff, which is part of general knowledge. And we have like air law. There's a lot of laws. There's navigation, weather. Like you have to understand a lot of about weather.
yeah.
So all that fun stuff. So after I got my commercial, wrote the IATRA exam, then I went to work up north for an airline, they still operate like war airplanes. It was pretty interesting experience over there, and I came back. This year I did my instructor rating. After going up north, I still did a lot of work flow flying, and now I decided, with COVID and stuff, I decided to do my instructor rating, teach out here and stay in BC.
So
So
what is your current roles and what do you do for work? Like, did you jump from job to job, or how does it work exactly when you become a pilot?
depends on the luck. Like for me, I was really lucky because I had a friend that was going to the same school, and then he was working for a survey company out of Pitt Meadows, and then I got in touch with him, and these guys were buying a new plane, so I actually got hired, and I stayed with them for like 3 months, but the plane wasn't ready. I was getting paid without flying. I was still living out in Langley. I didn't get paid, and then they actually had to lay me off because they were losing clients and everything. So that was a problem with like the overhaul and the engine and stuff. But I was really lucky to actually even land a job right away because it's tough land a job out here. And then after I didn't have another option. I went up north, like a very common path that the pilots have to take, in order to get hours and then to
So
move on
what's
to
this
better
hour? So how
jobs.
does the hour system work exactly now? How does it work? Do you get like a certificate after a certain amount of hours, or how does it work exactly?
Not really. Like in order to get the ETPL, yes, you have to have 1,500 hours, and then you write exams, and then if you have all the requirements, there's certain hours for cross country, certain hours PIC, certain hours for PIC is pilot in command, certain hours for night time, and as a PIC in cross country, there's lots of requirements that you have to fill in. But that's just for the airline transport pilot license, which is like, after you have 1,500 hours. But before that, it's just like how the more hours you have, the better for you, more possibilities. And before COVID, a lot of jobs were asking like for 750 hours, and then even they were trying to reduce the hours, and there were jobs asking for even like 500 hours.
Okay.
And I was really in love with like seaplane flying, float flying, and I actually changed my job because I really wanted to experience that and get that pilot in command time. I
Yeah.
was flying as a first officer up in Yellowknife, and then I was offered a job in Northern Ontario flying float planes, and I went and took that, and I was really happy to be there for a season and learn so much bush flying and got to fly iconic planes. So I did in Yellowknife, where I flew the DC-3, which is like such an iconic airplane from the World War, and then
Yeah.
in Ontario I was flying a Beaver, which is an amazing aircraft for
Wow.
that kind of flying.
That's kind of neat.
Yeah, so it was great. There's a lot of opportunities in Canada. And one of the things that I tell my students, depending on what they want to do, if they want to go to the airlines or if they just want to fly right away or if they want to become an instructor. But with the float flying operations here, it's pretty big and you can always get in with low time, 200 hours, like right fresh from the commercial program. It's basically one of the easiest ways, right?
Yeah.
If
Interesting.
if not, you have to have 250 hours to be able to write the IATRA, which is like the two crew exam, the one I did to go
Hmm.
work in a airline. That's kind of like the route I had to take. So basically, after I was laid off, I invested a little bit more money on floats and I got more hours to reach the
Okay.
250, so I could write that exam. But besides the 250 and the 1500 hours, there's not really a number to get a certain place. It's just about getting more hours. So right now I'm like over 1,000 hours, and it really opens many more doors when you
Yeah.
reach more hours, like over 1,000 hours, and
Okay.
even
That's
when you
cool.
get to 1,500 hours, even more. Right? That's what I'm looking for.
So I
Yeah.
got a question. Do they do psychological testing or anything like that or assessments before you become a pilot? Do you get interrogated? Because here's some people do that. What happens is they get interrogated and go, hey, why do you want to become a pilot? And they talk to them for like hours. And
Oh yeah. Well, not really. Like maybe a cadet program or like the Air Force or something. But we have to get a certain medical, which is especially for commercial. Like if you go for your private, you only need the Category 3 medical, which is less, let's say, less rigid or less requirements. But when you
it's not as difficult, what you're saying, right? It's not as difficult to do it, right?
Well, yeah, they will not look like, for example, I'm not sure if they will look into the electrical cardiogram. I forgot what they look into the Category 3, because I always got my Category 1 from day one, right? Like I had a plan to become a commercial pilot, and then after 3 months, I already had my private pilot, and I was already working on my commercial,
Yeah.
and that's when I moved into Langley there. As soon as I got my private, then I came to Vancouver. I did my private in Kamloops. That was something I forgot to mention, right? Because I could fly a lot more there. I was flying twice a day, and
Oh, that's
got it
cool.
really quick. In 3 months, I
Yeah.
was done with the private pilot. But I got my Category 1 since day one, before I even started my private training. The Category 1, they do assess you on those things. Like they ask you what medication are you on. They
Yeah.
kind of do a little bit of a background on you. But there's not really a psychological test. Like in Brazil, even for driving, you have to go through like a lot of these tests that you're asking about. Canada is a little bit different.
Okay. 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 What is it like just to fly? Just to be by yourself and kind of flying. What's that like? Like it must be pretty amazing at first, eh? Or
Oh yeah, it's the most amazing feeling for me. Like that's what made me like change my whole life and come to Canada even without knowing this place. I just came
yeah.
here to start a new career because I was so hooked and so in love with flying. I used to be a paraglider pilot, even was into competitions and everything. So that was a really special thing that I covered. That was like I always wanted to do it, and then as soon as I had the chance, I did it, and I was just like right, but mesmerized by it, and just want to do that my whole life and change my career and follow
Yeah.
my dream. And here I am, man. I'm really happy with it. If you ask me what's the thing that most make you happy, I'd say my job. I really love flying. You just and in BC is the greatest place because you have mountains, you have lakes and waterfalls that falls into the ocean. You're looking at this incredible beauty here
Yeah.
that you're not gonna find in a lot of other places. It's
Yeah.
quite amazing.
Oh, that's cool. So how do you become a teacher? Like I noticed that you don't have to have as much experience to become a teacher. And how does that work exactly now? And
That's
what's like a
true.
teach? Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of weird because I did my commercial training. It cost me about 50 grand or so. And to be honest, like when you go for university, you probably spend about the same, and you have these like high degree professors that have PhDs or master's
Yeah.
degrees and stuff. And then you're paying that amount of money to go to school with like a guy who's just like fresh out of commercial, maybe has like a little bit more hours, maybe
Yep.
250 hours at most. So it's kind of crazy to think about that, right? Like, but it's not just the teacher that you're paying, the instructor. You just the thing that costs more is the airplane itself, right?
The
The
fuel and all that
rental.
stuff and using it. Is that what you
Yeah,
mean?
like the plane is probably like, let's say the plane costs about $170 an hour, and then the student is only like about $30 an hour. You're paying $200 an hour, but it all goes to the airplane in reality. So
Yeah.
that's kind of how it goes. One of the paths that we can actually reach those hours, that we can actually get hired to better jobs. If not, you have to go up north, go somewhere that nobody wants to go, but still a great experience, right? Like, and I did want to do that to get the experience. I didn't felt like I could be an instructor with like 200 hours and not have the experience to pass on, so that was my path that I chose. I just didn't want to be an instructor, and I was so overwhelmed with so much studying that I did. Just didn't want to study anymore. I just wanted to fly. I wanted to be
So
uh,
you become I thought you became an instructor, or were you
yeah,
thinking
I mean, like after, like out
after a
of
little
my
while?
commercial, I didn't want to be an instructor right away, and then after I got some experience, quite a few jobs, and I had a survey job, I had airline job on the DC-3, which is an old airplane but still flying, and then the bush flying, and then while I was doing my instructor rating, I had a full-time job, survey again with the same company, right? So I came back to the same guys, but I was flying a better plane, like a higher end a Cessna 210, the retractable gear, more complex airplane. And while I was doing my instructor rating, but now I had the experience, right? Like, so I felt comfortable to do it.
My
So,
question is, why don't they get like a 50 or 60-year-old who's been driving the pilot in the airplanes for years,
oh
as
yeah.
opposed to like 2 or 3 years now? How does that work exactly? Like, wouldn't I rather get like a 50 or 60-year-old's been doing it for 15, 20 years or whatever? Or does it
Or
matter? Or
as you get like more hours, as soon as you get to 1,000 hours or even less, people move on to the airlines because the schools, they don't pay instructors that well. But there's a good school in Abbotsford where there's like old guys teaching because I think they pay really well, and they that's what I heard, right? But usually that's not what happens. People are there to get the hours and then move on. That's why I didn't want to be an instructor for that. I wanted to be an instructor because I like to teach. I like to pass it on, the
yeah,
knowledge. But just to get the hours, I had instructors like that. It was really miserable. It made my training miserable, and I had to even change instructors because I was like, I was not enjoying it. So a lot of people, they go that route just to get the hours so they can get the
oh,
airline.
okay.
So that's the main goal for a lot of people. It was never my goal, actually. Kind of like another topic. You
Yeah,
can
wow, it's crazy, man.
uh,
What would you say to a student who's going down the career path that you want to follow? What would you say to them? Would you say go here, go to this website, or what would you say to them? Would you want to make sure that they're ready for it, or what's the deal?
Yeah, nowadays there's a lot of things on the internet that you can study from, and even videos from like YouTube channel guys that actually have a great content podcast. There's so many things out there, that you can do research on. There's so many paths that you can can choose to go. Even for them, it's a really hard thing to know what they want. Like most of the guys are just like, oh, I just want to fly. I just want to fly as
Yeah.
possible. I just want to be working, tomorrow if I could. The instructor path is basically like the easiest path if you want to stay in where you are from and you don't want to move, and then you just go for instructor rating. But if you are a new student just out of commercial, you're gonna probably spend more hours than you need. You need 30 hours, maybe, like, because you don't have like as much experience, so you're going to probably spend 40 hours to be finished. And really, like, it depends on, like, for example, I have a student, he's Brazilian, but his English is not that great. So I was like, man, if you go, he was asking like to be an instructor, become an instructor, or to do his seaplane rating and more hours, and then work with float operations, somewhere. Because if you're willing to move from BC and go to Ontario, there's a lot of opportunities, right?
Yeah.
And I said, man, you're gonna have a tough time because your English is not that great, and, like, you're even struggling on the radio right now, and you only have 200 hours. So it really depends on the background of the student, what he wants. If it's a guy who really wants to go to the airlines, then I would recommend doing all the ratings. Maybe get to 250 hours, do his IATRA, and try to get a ramp job so he can start on the ramp and then move on to the right seat. But it really depends on what you want. But for a student to, like, kind of take a look and see the options, there's a lot of podcasts and YouTubers and that do a great content. There's a guy who his name is Steven, and he does like the flight shop one. He does a lot of, like, what is his mistakes. He wants to show it and put it out there on camera so people can actually learn from it, so in a
Yeah.
really nice way. And he flies all different kinds of airplanes, and even take his training and show it out there, how he did, like, his IFR or his float rating in Alaska, all these kinds of journeys. And it's a great tool. Like, the internet is amazing.
Yeah. So you have to know English pretty good, right? Is that the deal? Across the world, pretty much you got to know English for
Oh
becoming a
yeah,
pilot?
English is the universal language in aviation. Like, if you want to work anywhere, you have to be able to speak clearly and have at least a degree of English that people can understand you, and
Yeah.
you can communicate better. Or at least get the word out that people can understand you. Like,
Yeah, it's
there's
important.
a
It's about
lot of.
safety, right? You need to know the English language, or you could something unsafe could happen. You need to know right away,
Exactly.
right?
Like, if you don't understand, there's a guy reporting his position and you don't understand what he's saying. I usually, like, here, it's very common when you go to practice area, there's a lot of students and they're from, like I said, from other countries. It's really hard to understand what they're saying. Sometimes you have to ask again what they're saying. And even tower, like, they have trouble sometimes to understand what they're saying. It's a problem here now. I think Transport Canada is changing a little bit the English exam before the private, so it's a little tougher. Because
Okay.
when I did, it was ridiculous. Like, it was really easy, just oral exam, very easy exam. But now it seems that they're changing that, so it's a good thing, I guess. And yeah, I mean, if you want to go work anywhere, even in Brazil, if you want to take the international flights, you have to be able to speak in English so you can be able to out of the country.
So is there anything else we'd say to them? Like, what is there anything else you'd say to a new student? Anything that they'd want to know, or just go on YouTube, or
A student from Canada or outside, you mean?
just
Or
anywhere really? I mean, maybe in Canada, I guess, because I think most of our subscribers are in America or Canada, I guess. So
okay.
what were the things to do just to get yourself ready for it? Like,
Right. Well, the best thing is, like, to go to the schools, check out the programs, like, talk to the people that go to that school, like, ask questions. Like, most of my students, the first thing I do is like, hey, come to the school, come check out the planes, come talk to the people, talk to the students, see what they like, if they really like the instructors. And that's the best thing, because I actually started in a school that I didn't really like so much the way the school is run. So if I actually had the opportunity to go there and experience a little bit of what the guys were getting, from it, I would probably had run away from it, and
Yeah.
and that's why when I decided to change schools, I went to Langley, few schools there, and I thought the school I went to was a really good school, and I talked to people, and then that's how I made my decision. That was a really good thing. Another thing is there's a lot of things that you can do, like but basically if you're looking for school, that's one thing you can do.
Yeah.
For as concerning to website, there's AOPA, which is a good website that promotes safety. There's Mayday shows where you can look into like all kinds of accidents. There's so many contents out there that if you're interested in aviation, and there's a lot of people that do a lot of simulator stuff too. But basically, if you're looking into getting into aviation, starting a program, I definitely recommend going into the schools, looking at the schools,
Talking to the students, right? See how they feel
talk to
about it.
students. Yeah, go there. Like I think that's the key advice, because some schools, they ask for money in advance. People have to pay for the letter of acceptance in case you're coming internationally, like I did. So sometimes it's really expensive, and then people get their visa denied. They don't give you the money back, so you can get tricked. So there's a lot of things out there, a lot of scams, so you got to be careful with that. So
Okay. So what would you tell yourself if you're what would you tell yourself if you could do it right now and tell your 18-year-old self after high school? What would you tell that person? What would you tell yourself?
if I was 18-year-olds.
If you could see yourself as 18 years old, just out of high school, what would you say
Oh,
to
okay.
that guy? What would you say to yourself?
Oh, right. Yeah. If I was, if I could go back in time, man, that'd be amazing. I would probably tried harder to look into what I really wanted, which was flying back then. Find a way. There's like in Canada, you guys have so many programs and opportunities. Like yeah, there's cadet programs that like you don't even have to pay for it if you're a Canadian citizen. Like in Brazil, we don't have that opportunity, but here there's so many more things that you can actually looking into doing. Like there's fundraising campaigns, that like there's so many things, like there's like scholarships that you could have an opportunity of winning. It's amazing like what you can do if you don't have the money. You just can fight for it. There are a lot of things that I even tried a scholarship, but I didn't get it, but I was one of the finalists, so that
Uh,
was that was a good thing. Like and you can always see like, okay, so that wasn't for me, but it changed my life, because then it made me work harder for what I wanted, and then I got where I wanted to do, where I wanted to get. And actually the reason I didn't win the scholarship was because I had enough hours that they said, oh, this guy's going to make in the industry, so we don't have to worry about him. Let's give it to this person that has less, and she probably need this more than him.
yeah,
and
okay.
and I felt happy for her, or for the person that got it, because at least they were helping
Yeah,
someone, and
absolutely.
that's great.
Okay, so you tell yourself just to do more research and just look into it
Yeah,
more and look into scholarships and all kind of stuff. Basically, you tell your 18 year
yeah. Well, like in like where I come from, this type of profession is a very unknown, like by everyone. It's just people. There's a lot of it's very mystified, like kind of you don't know a lot of it. Like
yeah,
I got to know more that was something feasible after I was older. Like at first, I didn't really look into it like as much, and I was like, oh, I don't have the money for this. This is too expensive, and actually didn't actually look through ways of getting it, because there's always a way if you actually want it. All you want, if you want really hard, you can find a way, right?
yeah,
So I could have followed that more, with more firmness. But that was good too, my trajectory, and I had the opportunity to do great things. And now I'm here with more responsibility as well, because there's a lot of people that start flying really young, and if they don't have a lot of responsibility, they can do like stupid things and
yeah,
even kill themselves and other people, right? So for me, it was good that I had to get more maturity before I started doing this. So that was a good thing for me. So
Okay, that's cool. Awesome.
a lot of students come from India here because it's the same price as well, like in the school that I was going to. So their parents send them here, and it's about the same or even cheaper, and you get a better training, right? So Canada is a good place to do it, and you have these types of weather that and you can land in places that are high and it's challenging, like 3,000-foot lakes over the water, confined areas
Okay.
in the mountains. It's amazing, like what you can do here. So it's a great place. I'm really happy, fortunate to was able to actually come here and do this. So it was the greatest thing I've done for myself, and I think I did a really good choice.
That's good. Well, Samuel, thank you so much for being on my show, my friend. I appreciate that.
Welcome, man.
If you like the FOF Guide videos, we got a lot more in store for you. Hit the notifications bell so that you know that we got them coming out. Hit like, hit subscribe. Always leave a comment. Whether it's a thumbs up or a thumbs down, let us know.